social agent and the human being. A key part of the definition of character here is that it is a distinctive mark. It is a mark that sets itself apart from others. Someone's character tells me that they are clearly Joanna, not Joseph. For something to be a character then, I need to be able to recognize it as being set apart from other characters. This also means that the character must be to some degree predictable. When I recognize Joanna as Joanna, it is because she behaves the way I expect Joanna to behave, so she must be acting to some degree predictably. We can think of Joanna's character as a kind of recognizable pattern, like the word Joanna, Joanna itself, which I can recognize and read. But what if human beings are in fact very flexible and skilled at playing different characters, not only one? Let us imagine that rather than containing a particular fixed character that is unchanging, Joanna is a kind of robot who can run any character, like an app. Joanna the robot lives in a world populated by other robots like her, who are all capable of running any character. But to be able to run a certain character, just like an app, Joanna must download it first. She reads books and watches films containing lots of impressive characters, heroes, villains, and all, and by taking all these characters in, she is downloading them, learning their familiar patterns. For example, she learns that villains like to laugh by roaring, "No ha 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 ha." And so if ever Joanna wanted to act like a villain, she could be sure that laughing in this way would get the other robots around her to recognize her as such. In this hypothetical world populated by robots, like us, they also require certain resources to stay alive, and no single robot is capable of sustaining itself. Robots must cooperate by building robot cities, managing robot farms, and finding robot mates to raise families with. It turns out that character is an important technology when it comes to robot cooperation, precisely because it makes robots predictable. We know that a robot could, in principle, run virtually any character program, or even go haywire and behave in completely random, unrecognizable ways if it wanted to. But it does not pay off for them to act randomly or unrecognizably. Robots want to be recognized by other robots so that they can ask them for help and help them in turn. That is how they organize and how they survive. So, even though Joanna is capable of running different character programs, she learns that it pays off to stay more or less consistent to one, the main Joanna character program. When she approaches the other robots, they can tell she is not a threat because she is behaving predictably, and they can tell she is open for cooperation because her predictability means that they can expect certain things from her. These other robots in turn offer her the same courtesy, and each of them sticks to one main program consistently so that Joanna can expect certain things from them. The character program that each robot consistently runs becomes known as their personality, and over time, we forget that they can play other characters, because they always seem to be playing the same one. What happens then is that the other robots begin to believe that Joanna is the main Joanna character app she keeps playing. They forget that she can run other apps and begin to regard her as the main Joanna character app itself. What if human beings were such universal character-playing robots like Joanna? Since they depend on social organization to survive, human beings too must behave predictably to cooperate by learning to exhibit more or less consistent characters to others. Perceiving the human Joanna as if she were just that one character she keeps running allows her to seamlessly fit into society. Her character works like a dream most of the time. For example, the other humans present her with gifts that they can guess she will like based on her previous behavior. The process of becoming a predictable pattern, becoming a character, is something we learn through childhood and continue to hone as adults. Maintaining the predictability level of one's own behavior, maintaining a consistent character by which others know you, is a skill. Like walking and talking, having a character is trained into an infant from early on because it will equip that human with the tools to cooperate and therefore survive in a social world. We can call the main character app, the main pattern of behaviors by which we know a person, the social agent. However, this system in which human beings simplify and limit the range of characters they can display has its glitches. A common problem is that of betrayal. In the universal character running robot example, I gave a simplified picture of these robots by describing them as only running one app. To add a bit more detail to that picture, we could say that really, a single robot does not only need to act cooperatively with one type of social environment, but in several. And so, different character apps may be appropriate to each social environment, for example, work, school, home, etc. A glitch can occur when such a robot finds itself in a situation where they must interact with members of two distinct social environments simultaneously, because then it becomes unclear which character app they ought to be running, as exemplified by Moscarda in section 4.1. Running one app could signal a betrayal to members of the other social environment, because one may be behaving in ways that conflict with their expectations. Another problem that can occur is that we may find that the world is molding us into a character we might not necessarily wish to run. For example, while it may be nice to know that a person's predictability enables us to gift them things that match their character and which they are thus likely to like, such gifts may in fact shape the recipient's character in the first place. An example of this is Judith Butler's argument that women are girled through a consistent series of specific treatments by others that begin, perhaps, with the speech act performed by a doctor when they exclaim, "It's a girl," following the results of an ultrasound scan. From then on, a succession of social mechanisms slot into place to train the female infant to acquire the correct character. Through the gifting of a specific selection of toys, such as dolls or play kitchens, the infant girl learns that her role is to mother, cook, and clean, and internalizes the task of reproductive labor as an essential part of her identity. In the making of film and drama, the word character is used almost interchangeably with the word role. The proximity of these concepts appears in everyday social structures too, precisely because character is a technology for organizing human beings into types that perform roles. When the female infant is growing up, we train her to hone her main character app, and being female becomes part of her character. We watch her playing happily with the dolls and warmly think, how typical. But our gifts are shaping her behaviors. Through a series of rewards and punishments, the female infant acts increasingly like the sort of creature who would love to be given dolls as a gift, and with this reinforcing feedback loop, her destiny is being written, a destiny which many women have found oppressive. The problem is not that she enjoys playing with the dolls, or that we are giving her dolls, but rather that, in watching her behaviours, we focus too intently on the character of her budding social agent, forgetting that this little human being is in fact capable of playing many other characters. Like Joanna the robot, she has merely learned that it pays off to stick to one. By forgetting her potential for running more diverse characters, we begin to see the main character app she is running as herself in its entirety, as her essential unchanging state. Her destiny as woman becomes much harder to escape. The way in which we currently understand character and the roles it creates, the way in which the human being is constantly reduced to the social agent, accounts for much social injustice and violence against individuals, even wars. Because certain social groups and entire nations acquire character and role much in the same way that human beings do, it can be difficult for them to escape the way they are perceived. These are some of the undesirable consequences of living in a system where human beings achieve their complex social organization through the simplification of their character. It is as if there exists a trade-off between social organization and individual diversity. The simpler and more predictable the constituent members of a society are, the more organized and functional the society is at a higher level. If individuals were permitted to run a greater diversity of characters, would society become dysfunctional and inefficient? Even if this were to be true, perhaps the most profound question is, should we care if the human being's capabilities as a universal character-playing machine are deliberately ignored in favor of a well-oiled, functioning society capable of efficiently organizing people into types and roles? In section 5.2, I suggested that characters could be classified according to how tethered they are to the social milieu. A strongly tethered character takes on a special significance when the human being enters the social milieu. Once adopted, it begins to acquire all kinds of rights and responsibilities. This strongly tethered character, or set of characters, is the social agent. Its significance is so great that when the human being enters the social milieu, it is read in its entirety as if it were only one character, the social agent, and not a character-playing machine capable of running different characters. A kind of suspension of disbelief occurs. Just as in a theatre, we suspend our reading of the actors as actors and instead see them as real people doing real things, so in the social milieu, we suspend our reading of human beings as human beings and see them instead as social agents. This brings us to another one of the research findings of this thesis. The social agent is that character which is adopted by the human being when it enters the social milieu, endowing it with rights and responsibilities. The world to which Shakespeare refers when he writes, "All the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players," is the social milieu. In Shakespeare's time, what was worldly encapsulated those things that were of social significance, as opposed to spiritual or natural significance. The world is a stage if we take it to be the social milieu, because it has the power to suspend our disbelief in the character that is the social agent. We forget the human being that is running it beneath. The bureaucratization of spirit. The adoption of the social agent when entering the social milieu, is an act of tempering the human being, disciplining it, attenuating its potential for diversity towards a singular, self-consistent output. As was shown in Chapter 4, there is a strong social distaste for character variability and a strong social preference for consistency and expressive coherence in the presentation of self in everyday life. According to Goffman, this required consistency, quote, points out a crucial discrepancy between our all-too-human selves and our socialized selves. A certain bureaucratization of the spirit is expected so that we can be relied upon to give a perfectly homogeneous performance at every appointed time, end quote. Goffman's use of the self-deprecating phrase, all too human, is employed to highlight the human being as an animal or creature of variable impulse with moods and energies, as he says, a side of self which social interaction often seeks to suppress. This human being is the poor, mortified body that Pirandello's Moscarda caught sight of in his reflection when his social agent had finally been stripped away. It is the zombie self which is always there and whose gruesome, socially illegible facial expression we are occasionally given a glimpse of in a mistimed portrait photograph, where the sitter's face has been caught in the journey between two coherent expressions. The unsocialized gaze of the camera lens shows us how willing we are to edit out the monstrous stills expressed by others around us as their faces journey from one pose to the next. Our attention fixes only on what is socially relevant and acquires a strategic blindness to the rest. Just to pause on that point about unflattering photographs of people, if you actually even pause this video at a random moment, you'll probably see my face frozen between two more coherent states. And sometimes the way someone looks, the way they appear in this unflattering still, is kind of disturbing to see. It's almost like a zombie self. This idea comes from my father, Miloš Ranković. He talks about this photographed zombie in this article here that I've cited down in the footnote. And it's a really good point because it shows how you need the unsocialized gaze of the camera. You need an objective eye to freeze the frame of the face as it travels between coherent states to see that. Because when you're actually just watching me in real time like you are now, I appear to always be presenting in a socially coherent way and I don't seem like a zombie because you are actually in real time selectively reading my face. You're not reading those kind of disturbing, unsocialized moments of my face as it travels between readable expressions. It's another kind of self-estranging activity you could try maybe to like video yourself talking normally and then pausing the video in the moments between your face making legible expressions. And there is exposed perhaps, again, like in the mirror gazing example earlier, a means of seeing the self as a kind of machine that's just working away and which is striving towards presenting a kind of socially coherent presentation of self. But also you, as the perceiver of my expressions, are also a machine in the sense that you are selectively reading my actions. So far, we're trying to characterize in a way what the human being is beneath its socialization, beneath character. And this animal-like representation of the human being or machine-like representation of the human being is kind of what we are getting at. So Goffman compares this human being to an animal with various impulses and moods and energies. And then Moscarda has this poor mortified body. And then Miloš Ranković is talking about this view of the human being as almost like a zombie. So those are some analogies. And this zombie, this animal, this mortified body is often perceived as a worrisome and unnerving thing, degenerate, uncivilized, and primitive. Over this creature, George Santayana prefers the mask we wear arguing that what I have here called the social agent is truer to who we are than the unarticulated thing that lies beneath. Character captures our attention, is legible, is aesthetically appreciable. The human being is conditioned to disappear from our attention, is illegible, is abject. Could it be that what is seen as so aesthetically displeasing about contemplating the human being in and of itself, set apart from character, is not its animality per se, nor its unkemptness and lack of table manners, but its status as a being of potential rather than essence? And could it be that the very purpose of the social agent has been to suppress the knowledge that we can switch masks at any time, to uphold the belief that the social agent is the very essence of self, rather than one of many characters within the repertoire of the human being? It is perhaps not only our animal aspect that we conceal when we enter the social milieu. It is the fact that we hold the potential to run multiple characters and are not essentially beholden to any particular one. This is why children who move schools are often told they have a chance to reinvent themselves in the new social milieu. The social agent is a fiction that we keep suspended by placing a veto on performing other characters that come into conflict with it. This is enabled through social correction and training and becomes so habitual that only the odd, irreconcilable case of frame switching or the inability to segregate audiences, amongst other performance disruptions, blasts it into view. And yet, even when such disruptions happen, they are quickly put under wraps again. As Goffman noted, people engaged in a social interaction will often help each other maintain a shared definition of the situation, even if this definition is known by some of the parties to be false. And this is what is called tact. It is the variable character of the human being, not only its bodily reality, that is considered abject. And in social interaction, we go through a great deal of effort to suppress awareness of that variability.